Friends, welcome. We'll continue our discussion on the topic capital structure. In the previous class, in fact, we have started the topic. We are talking about various types of capital structure. And at that time, I had explained you to run the business, you need capital, right? And this capital comes from various forms. Various forms, it may come in the form of debt or it may come in the form of equity. And there is a possibility that you may receive capital in the form of some kind of, you can say, hybrid instruments, right? Which is a mixture of debt and equity. Okay, for example, let us say convertibles. So it may be a bond, but latter part, maybe after certain years, it may be converted into equity. That possibility is also there. Okay, so these are various forms in which you receive capital, right? And you use that money to do your business, right? At that point of time also, in the previous class, I was giving you an example of mixer wala. That means when you buy mixture from a mixer wala, from a roadside mixer wala, you know he mixes various components, isn't it? And he mixes it such a way that cost is within control, cost is within a limit. Let us say he's selling a packet of mixture for you for 10 rupees. He arranges the cost and he creates a combination of the cost in such a way that cost is definitely within 10 rupees. And there are many items in that components where cost is more, and there are many items where cost is also less. But he creates a combination. Some items he put more weight, some items he put less weight. Accordingly, creates a combination in such a way that, let us say, overall cost will be, for example, 8 rupees, so that he can sell it at 10 rupees and he can have a profit of 2 rupees. Okay, have you understood that example? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So that 2 rupees is in fact is value addition. He creates a value of 2 rupees. Okay, or you can say he maximizes his wealth to the extent of 2 rupees when he sells a packet of mixer. That is what he does. So exactly what we do in the business. In business also we need to grow. We need to maximize our wealth. And business also we need money. The money comes from various forms of capital, and the capital is utilized in such a way that the value is maximized. So we are going to quickly recapitulate what you have learned in our previous class. Then we'll continue further. Going to share the screen with you. Yeah, previous class I had explained you what is the meaning of capital structure. In fact, the combination of capital in a business. If I would like to show you again, or I will show you various kinds of why it is important, that also I had explained you. And we were discussing about the definition given by Mr. Van Horn about capital structure. We know this is the mix of firms, permanent long-term financing, represented by debt, preferred stock, and common stock of equity. So all these three taken together, debt, equity, and preferred share taken together, capital structure of the firm is formed. And there are 4 types of capital structures. So you see horizontal structure, vertical structure, pyramid shape structure, and reverse pyramid shape structure. Have you understood this thing? We remember?
Yes, sir.
Okay, first you see horizontal structure means all equity, and vertical structure means less equity, then more debt. Okay, so previous class we have discussed. Let me show you this thing. Just give me a moment. Are you able to see it? Okay. So this side in balance sheet, what we write normally?
Yes, sir.
What are the items written here? What we write here? Let us say this is the position
Assets.
of
Assets.
So this side we write assets. And assets, you know, there will be non-current assets and current assets. Okay, non-current assets means which you popularly refer to as fixed assets. They are non-current assets and current assets. Okay, so let us say here it is 200. Here this is, I'll change it. Let us say here that is 300. Here this is 200. Total is 500. Okay. To run the business, that means your business is having this much of assets. That means you have applied your funds of 500 rupees on current asset and non-current asset like this. But how you have arranged the funds? So this side we write the source. What is that we write here in this side, left side? In this side we are writing the assets. This side
Liabilities.
liability, but it is not exactly, entire thing is not liabilities. This is equity and liabilities. Okay, if you see in modern balance sheet, you will understand there are two components, not exactly liability. All are not liabilities. One is liability, other one is equity. You can verify the Schedule 3 format. So here one part is equity. Equity means equity share capital. Then liability means your debt. Okay. By nature, preference can also be classified as you can say first preference, then debt. Debt again can be current liability, non-current liability, or I will put the non-current liability and current liability. This can be the structure. Okay, and it can be vertical also. Vertical means assets will be in the top, liabilities, equity and liabilities will be bottom. Okay, in some companies, or reverse is also possible. Depends which part of Schedule 3A company is adopted. Or equity liabilities can be top, assets can be at the bottom. So these are the, you can say, application, these are the sources. Okay. Right? Did you understand this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, if you talk about the first kind of capital structure, that is horizontal capital structure. Okay. Horizontal capital structure, what will be the structure of the business? It is all equity. That means entire 500 is equity. Here 0, 0, 0. Total is 500. This kind of structure will be called as what capital structure?
Horizontal capital.
Horizontal. So if I say vertical capital structure, can you tell me what is a vertical capital structure? Who can tell me? What's a vertical capital structure? Equity is less. Okay. Maybe I will say equity is 100 and debt is more. Debt may include preference capital also. Preference capital, let us say 100, and this is debt is 300. Did you understand this? Are you seeing it?
Yes, sir.
What kind of capital structure is it?
Less equity and more debt.
What we'll call vertical or horizontal?
Vertical.
This is vertical. Okay. What is horizontal? Horizontal means all equity.
All.
All equity. Okay. Then two more kinds of capital structures are there. One is pyramid structure. Okay. Then other one is reverse pyramid structure. Okay. Pyramid structure means equity is more. Let us say equity is 300 and equity includes reserves. Our equity is 200, reserve is 100 and debt is 100. So you see, so equity, this reserves and equity share capital both forms a part of equity. So this is 300. This is, let us say 200. This is 200. This is 100. So this is, you see, what we'll call it as pyramid set, right? Reverse pyramid means reverse. Let us say,
Sir,
yeah, tell me.
what is reserve?
What is
reserve? Reserve.
what is
Apart from equity is there, reserve.
what is reserve? You see, capital
Huh.
structure. If you see capital structure of a company, it is like this. What is reserve? Every year, through profit and loss statement, you generate some profit. Yes or no?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Generate some profit. Okay. You may be distributing some profit,
Yes, sir.
and some profit may not be distributed.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Suppose you earn 100 rupees. You have decided you have distributed 80 rupees. 80 rupees gone to the equity shareholders. Remaining 20 rupees accumulated. The 20 rupees will transfer to the balance sheet. It is kept as reserve. Okay. Who is the owner of that reserve? Equity shareholders.
Company.
Because it is profit.
Yes.
It is equity shareholders. Therefore, reserve also forms a part of equity. So under equity, there are equity share capital plus reserves.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You understand?
Yes, sir.
So reserve means you
I
can say retained profit
Yes.
or retained
But sir, it is not. Yes, I got it. But it is not at the start of in the start of business. It is in between.
Yeah.
Is it not?
Yeah, it is retained earning. So earning is retained. Okay. So let me
We
say
cannot
this.
write in the start of the business. Capital
Start
structure.
of the
In capital
business.
structure, initially,
Yeah.
uh,
Initially, we
we can write
start the
only
business.
equity.
You start with the it is equity share capital.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Okay. So did you understand that concept now? So I told you two structure. One is equity.
Yes, sir.
Are you seeing the screen now? First is horizontal structure, which is all equity farm. Then vertical structure, you see less equity and more debt. Debt and preference is more. Next is pyramid shape. You see equity is more. Just like that I was showing you in that example. Let us say in this example, if you see, let us say equity is 300. Reserve is 100 and debt is 100. What is the structure? Here is 500, here 500. Equity is 300. Reserve is 100, debt is 100. This is called as a pyramid structure. Okay, are you getting? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Now, what is reverse pyramid structure? Debt is more. What I will do here? Here, debt, I'll make, let us say, debt is 300. Or debt is 400. Let us say reserves and share capital taken together is 100. 50. So, what kind of structure is this one? Are you seeing?
Reverse.
Debt is more, equity and reserves are retained earnings and less. That is called reverse pyramid structure. Okay, so these structures we had already discussed in our previous class. Okay, so those recorded videos are available in YouTube. You can check it. I think capital structure you have understood. Okay, types of capital structure you have understood. Okay, why capital structure is significant? That also we had discussed in our previous class. Yeah, one more important thing. This is about the difference between capital structure and financial structure. Okay, so I was showing you this particular balance sheet of a particular company. Here you see these are the assets at the top. Equity and liabilities. You see equity and liabilities are at the bottom. And this part you see equity and non-current liabilities, meaning long-term liabilities. This part is referred to as your capital structure. This is the capital structure, equity and liabilities. And if I include their current liabilities I include. That means the entire source I include. This can be referred to as your financial structure. So this is the difference between capital structure and financial structure. Did you understand? And in case there is no current liabilities, then capital structure and financial structure is same because current liability is 0. Okay, so again I repeat. So you see, assets constitute non-current assets, current assets taken together. Let us say this is asset. This asset is financed through these sources. Sources consist of equity and liabilities. Equity is here, you see, this is the part of equity. This part is equity. Then liabilities, non-current liabilities and current liabilities. When we talk about capital structure means long-term capital structure. Debt is a long-term instrument. Non-current liabilities are also long-term. So this part, equity plus non-current liabilities taken together is referred to as the capital structure of the firm. And if I'm including current liabilities, then it will become the financial structure of the firm. Is it clear to you, friends?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just have a look at this. Did you understand what is capital structure, what is financial structure? Yeah, various factors that influence capital structure we had discussed. Planning and designing of the capital structure, optimizing capital structure we had discussed. Then features of optimal capital structure, that means capital structure, optimal capital structure should ensure profitability. With the help of that capital structure, one should be able to maximize the profit. How one will able to maximize the profit? If cost will be less, return will be more. Okay, suppose I am getting a debt from cheap sources. My rate of interest will be low. Then naturally cost will be low, profit will be more. So I'll be able to maximize profit. So profitability should be taken care of by optimal capital structure. Okay, when deciding the capital structure, I have to focus on the profitability. Then flexibility also one more part. Flexibility means the moment I want, I should be able to change the capital structure. Suppose I have taken a debt, I can repay it when it is not required. That means my capital structure is flexible. But let us say I am entirely depending upon equity. Then it will be difficult for me to pay back. Right? So once I've taken this, I have to use it. You can say capital structure is rigid, not flexible. And when you talk about optimal capital structure, we'll look at this aspect. You see that the capital structure is made flexible. The third thing we see is the control. There should be minimum dilution of the control. Let us say there are 20 people managing the company. If I add more equity, then more shareholders may come. 100 shareholders may come. When 100 shareholders come, then the stake gets diluted. So previously it was managed by 20 people. So each one have a say, right? And their stake was, let us say, 1/20th. Okay. Okay, let's say everybody was having 5% stake. But if you are getting 100 members, then naturally stake gets diluted. Everyone has, you can say, let us say 1% stake one. So that aspect also should be taken care of when deciding the capital structure. Should have an optimal capital structure, keeping that thing in mind. Then solvency is one more thing, because too much of debt may affect the solvency position of the company. It may threaten years of solvency. That means there is a possibility that company may become insolvent. So that aspect also has to be taken care of. So these are the features of optimal capital structure. We had discussed that thing. And also, while designing the capital structure, we know that design should be functional, design should be flexible, design should be conforming the statutory guideline if certain requirements are there. Sometimes your borrowers put some restrictions regarding capital structure, so that also has to be taken care of. Okay, I think after that we have covered. Okay, I think after this we have covered. On this one also we have covered. Well-planned capital structure.
No, sir, this one has not been covered.
This has not been covered. So yeah, we'll start from here. What are the attributes of a well-planned capital structure? First of all, as we are discussing just now, it should maximize your return. So how maximization of return is possible? When cost reduction is possible, return can be maximized. Okay, so that aspect should be taken care of. And also risk should be minimum. Okay, when you take more debt, the firm is taking more risk, because when debt means you have got a fixed obligation. Meaning, even if you don't earn any profit, you have to meet the debt obligation. You have to pay the interest. You have to repay the principal amount. So that is the risk. But whereas in case of equity, that risk is relatively less. Why that risk is less? Because equity shareholders are owners. They'll get dividend only when there is a profit. If there is no profit, you need not pay them anything. But they expect the growth in their value of the shares. They expect profit. They expect dividend. Okay, so that they have got a cost, but risk is less. From farm's point of view, from company's point of view, risk is less in case of in case of debt. Therefore, debt is relatively cheaper to equity. Expectations of debt holders are less. Expectations of equity shareholders are. So a well-planned capital structure should ensure that risk is less, and also it should ensure that the capital structure is flexible. Flexible means when more money is required, you should be able to collect more money. When more money is not required, you should be able to pay back that money. So capital structure, it should be the capital structure should be such that it can be adapted, it can be changed depending upon the requirement. Okay, then one more thing, farm also should take care of, or the good capital structure should take care of the capacity of the farm. Capacity means the borrowing capacity. Okay, how much a company or how much a farm should be able to borrow. A good capital structure should keep that thing in mind. How much it can borrow? It depends upon its debt servicing capacity. Debt servicing capacity means how much debt it can pay, it can repay, it can service. Debt means you have to pay interest, you have to pay principal. So this payment of interest and principal depends upon how much cash flow is available with you, how much cash is available with you. So one needs to analyze how much will be the cash flow. Let us say in future years, in various years, how much cash flow I will be able to generate. Okay, and how much is my borrowing obligation? My borrowing obligation, that means my liability for repayment of debt, interest, etc., should be always less than the cash available with me. Okay, then only I can honor that. Okay, did you understand? Suppose my cash inflow is 100, my cash outflow is 60. That means my net cash flow available with me is 40. Is it done? Yes or no? Yes or no? Can you reply?
That means that is profit.
No, profit we are not talking about. Cash inflow is 100, outflow is 60. So my net flow is 40. Is it done?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, net flow is 40. So with that 40, suppose my interest liability is 30, then I can pay. My interest and my EMI liability, interest principal taken together, my EMI is worth 30, then I can pay. But my EMI is 60, then I cannot pay because my cash flow is not permitting me. That means I have borrowed more than my capacity. Okay, capacity depends upon farm's cash flow. And cash flow is different from profit. Since you have raised that issue, cash flow is different from profit. How you arrive at the profit? Can you tell me how do we arrive at the profit? Let me tell you, give an example. Just give me one more minute. Okay. So I'll do it in a different way. I'll do it in horizontal format. Let us say this is my profit and loss statement. All of you are able to understand? So here I write my revenue. Okay, here I write expenses. Yes or no? Please keep on responding. You can unmute your speaker and keep on responding. Otherwise, I am not getting
Yes,
any.
sir. Yes, sir.
No. Okay. So let us say my revenue is 1,000. Okay. My expenditure, let us say all expenditure ticket, let's say salary, wages, rent, Okay. So all this taken together, let us say 600. My depreciation is 200. So what is my profit? Can you tell me what is my profit?
$200.
Profit is 200. We are saying my net profit is 200. How you arrived at revenue minus all expenditure. So this is your profit. Okay. In financial management, definitely we should know the profit, but what is more important for us is cash flow. This is my profit, but how much is my cash flow? You see, to arrive at this profit of 200, I have deducted all expenditure. I have also deducted depreciation. Is it not?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But whether I have, is there any cash outflow with depreciation? Whether I have paid any cash for this thing I have paid.
No, sir.
Okay. So I have not paid. Cash has not gone. So my profit is 200. But how much cash is available with me? This 200 is available. Plus this is also available because I have not paid. So my cash flow is 400. Profit is 200. Profit is 200. But when you look at my cash box, I am finding 400. Why 400? Because this is what I have received. This is what I have paid. This I have not paid. So this is available in my cash box. Are you getting the difference between profit and cash flow?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, many times in financial statement, we need to convert profit to cash flow while taking decisions. In investment decision also, okay, in capital budgeting, when you're computing IRR and PV, that those things are not computed with they're not computed for profit. They are computed for cash flow. So how to compute profit into cash flow? So add all these non-cash items, non-cash expenditures has to be added. If there is some non-cash income, that has to be deducted. Okay, revenue is there, but revenue has not been received. Revenue receivable. That means cash has not come. So my cash flow is less. Profit is more. So my net profit can be adjusted for these non-cash items to get the cash flow. Are you getting the difference between profit and cash flow? Did you get the meaning?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So when we are talking about the capital structure, we have to see that my capital structure is designed in such a way that my cash flows are sufficient to meet my debt obligation. Otherwise, what will be assumed? It will be assumed or it will be concluded that you have taken debt beyond your capacity. So the capacity aspect needs to be taken care. Did you understand this now? Keep on responding. Okay. So this is what we're talking about. Then control. Okay. So that also we had discussed just now. There should be minimum dilution of control. If more people are involved, then control may dilute. Right. So every firm tries to minimize the dilution of the control. Therefore, while deciding the capital structure, that aspect has to be taken care of. If you introduce more equity or you bring more equity, then more shareholders will be coming and control will get diluted. Okay, so therefore that aspect has to be taken care of. A well-planned capital structure should have all these attributes, right? Okay. Now, friends, quickly we'll discuss about these components of total capital. As you have already said, I had shown you various capital structure. You know, two major components are debt and equity. Right, on the left side of the balance sheet, as you had seen just some time before, that there are two major components. One is debt and equity. Equity means what? Equity shareholders contribution. It may be equity share capital or it may be retained earning. Retained earning also belongs to the equity shareholders. Debt is the amount owed. That means it's the amount which is borrowed. It may be borrowed from individuals, from banks, or any other financial institutions. Okay. Equity is the ownership interest. It consists of equity share capital, share premium, okay, and a logical portion of preference share capital. Right. If you analyze technically preference capital may contain some element of equity in it. So that portion also equity. Free reserves, surplus, all these things forms a part of equity. Okay. The proportion of the debt and equity in the capital structure differs from company to company. Some company may find more debt, some company may find more equity. It differs from company to company. Capital structure also varies from industry to industry and depending upon the market situation. Depending upon the market situation, capital structure changes. Right? Because ultimate objective is to minimize the cost of capital. Let us say one form of capital is available at cheaper cost, at cheap rate. Then the farm should try to go for those kind of capital. Okay, so it depends upon the market situation. Did you understand this?
Yes, sir.
Well, friends. Now let us learn about some factors that govern the capital structure. Various factors are there. These factors, on the basis of these factors, we decide the capital structure. First, we should know what is the cash flow position. What is the future cash flow? One should be able to predict what is the cash flow in year 1, year 2, year 3, in future. What is the cash flow? On that basis, he has to decide capital structure. Because with that cash flow, he should be able to honor the obligations associated with capital. Okay, as I was telling you, we are discussing just now. If debt is taken, then you are obliged. Let us say you have taken a term loan and there is an obligation to pay EMI. So your cash flow should allow you to pay that EMI. Your cash flow position should allow you. So cash flow position affects your capital structure. Then interest coverage ratio. Interest coverage ratio means whether your interest part is covered or not. When you take a loan, you have to pay interest. So you should have sufficient cash flow to pay that interest. So how much interest is payable? How much cash flow is available? If cash flow availability is more, that means interest is covered. You can pay interest. No problem. Did you understand this? Okay. Similarly, debt service coverage ratio. So when you borrow money, not only interest, you might have to pay also principal part. So when you calculate debt service coverage ratio, we calculate whether the farm is capable of paying both interest as well as principal. If cash flow available is more, that means what? Farm is capable of paying more. More cash flow is available, but debt obligations are less. That can be tested through computation of debt service coverage ratio. That means debt service is adequately covered, meaning more cash flow is available to pay the debt obligation. That is also important while deciding the capital structure. Okay, are you getting?
Yes.
Now, return on investment. Now you are going to invest money in the business. How much return you are getting? Suppose you'll be getting return of 10% and debt is available at 11%. Would you like to take debt? You know, your business will give you 10%, but capital is available at 11%. Would you like to take? Would you like to start that business? No. So return on investment is important. On that basis, we'll decide the capital structure. Okay. Cost is important. Cost of debt as well as equity is important. We'll be learning the concepts, how to calculate cost of equity and cost of debt. Okay, and the firm should try the minimization of the cost and maximization of earning per share. So on that basis, capital structure will be decided. Tax rate is also important. Tax is also a kind of cash outflow. Tax has got some impact on cost of debt because what happens? When you take a debt, you pay interest. Yes or no? And this interest reduces your profit. Yes or no? Please keep on responding.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So this interest reduces your profit. and consequently the profit is reduced, so you pay less tax. Profit is less, you pay less tax. Meaning you are saving some tax. Meaning by payment of interest, you are saving tax. And that ultimately affects your cost. Let me show you this example again. Okay, again, let me show you this example, how tax affects the cost. You are seeing this PL statement. Revenue 1000, okay, no issue. Here coming the cost, let us say salary, wages, etc. are 300. Interest 200. Okay, depreciation 400. How much is the profit?
100.
How much? 100 is your profit.
100.
Well, arriving at the 100, you have paid this interest. Interest is a cost of capital. How much you have paid interest?
200.
200 rupees you have paid interest. Now let us say this is a company and the rate of tax is 30%. So how much tax you have to pay now? Tax how much?
30.
30. Tax is 30. What is profit after tax? Profit before tax is 100. Tax you are paying 30. What is profit after tax? All of you
70.
please participate. Yeah, how much?
70.
70. Okay. Now you see. Let us assume there is no interest. You have not taken this. You have not taken a loan. Rather, you have taken equity. Okay. So now you see how much tax you are paying, 30 rupees. Now let us say you have taken equity. If it is equity you have taken, then this cost will not be there. 200 will be there or not? Yes or no?
No, sir.
It will not be.
It will not be there. 200 is not there. Consequently, what will be the profit?
270.
How much? Little louder. How much will be the profit if interest is not there?
The profit before tax, it will be 300.
Before tax, it will be 300. So you are saying profit is 300. Now, how much tax you have to pay?
90.
90. Now you see, when you are not taking debt, you have to pay 90 tax. When you're taking debt, how you have to pay tax? How much is the tax? 30. So 60 rupees you are saving because of what? You are paying interest.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
60 rupees you are saving. So is it not a reduction of cost of capital? So because of which, if I say I'm taking debt, and when you're taking debt, and how much interest I'm paying? 200. I'm paying 200, but how much I'm saving? My tax is reduced from 90 to 30. Is how much? 60 I'm saving. Okay, if I pay interest, I'm paying 200, but when I pay 200, I save 60 rupees from tax. If I don't pay this 200, I have to pay more tax. Is it not?
Interest is more than the tax.
So now if you see,
Interest is
effective cost of debt, 200, it should be 200 minus 60. Why is minus 60? Because by paying 200, I'm saving 60 rupees. So the effective cost should be actually 100. That means interest minus tax. Did you understand? Yes or no? If you are confused, then ask me freely. Are you able to understand?
Yes, sir.
Can anyone respond?
Yes,
सर
sir.
वो 140 क्या है इफेक्टिव इंटरेस्ट?
Just a minute. Yeah. Yeah, little louder, please.
सर वो 140 वो क्या चीज है इफेक्टिव? समझ नहीं पाई।
Okay, 140 is that. So interest you are paying 200 rupees.
यस सर।
Okay, but when you pay 200 rupees, you are saving a tax of 40 rupees.
यस
Because when you pay 200 rupees, your profit will be less, and you will be paying tax on that less profit. The tax amount will be reduced by 60 rupees. That means you are saying my cost of debt is 200, but by paying 200, I am saving tax of 60 rupees. So my effective cost of debt is 200 minus 60, that is 140. Did you understand?
यस सर गुड।
Okay,
यस सर।
thank you. Yeah. So that is why the point 6 talks about tax rate affects the cost. Now you have seen how tax rate is affecting the cost. So you are thinking that cost is 200, but actually cost is not 200, cost is 140. Because when you're incurring a cost of 200 rupees, we are saving 60 rupees. So this factor also affects when deciding your capital structure. So we consider the tax rate also. The next factor is the risk. So everybody wants to minimize the operational risk, minimize the financial risk. So capital structure should be designed in such a way that these risks are minimum. Okay, so that means the reduction of debt will help you to minimize the risk. And control, I had talked to you earlier that dilution effect is one more factor which decides the capital structure. Okay, capital structure should be designed in such a way that there should be less dilution of control. There are few more factors. Flexibility is one more issue. Capital structure should be flexible, should be adjustable depending upon the need. Nature of the industry is important. So depending upon the size of industry, size of capital you need, you may decide that the debt or capital equity which is suitable. Stock market condition. In stock market, sometimes the cost of debt is higher. So cost of debt increases. Sometimes cost of equity fluctuates. On that basis, one has to decide. Or sometimes, let us say, flotation cost. That means issue cost is more. On that basis, one decide what should be the capital structure. Cash flow timing and projection. Timing means when the business is going to generate cash flow. Let us say business is such that it is going to generate cash flow after 5 years. Then accordingly, you have to plan capital structure. You have to take obligation in such a way that your liability as regards to capital structure will come only after 5 years. Then only you can meet that obligation. So cash flow timing and projections also matter for deciding capital structure. Size of the company, big company, large company, that also matters. Flotation cost I discussed right now. Flotation cost means cost of issuing, issue cost of the debt, issue cost of the capital, equity share capital. That is also important. A regulatory framework, laws, regulations, that also plays impact. Okay, you have to issue or you have to form capital structure within the framework of regulations and right competition in the industry. That is also important. Your competitor's capital structure has also got impact on your capital structure, because that will affect affect your competitor's costs. So accordingly, you should also manage your cost. There are many other issues like availability of fund in different sources, market condition, which affect the capital structure. So these are broadly various factors which govern the capital structure. I think you have understood this. Yes or no? Have you understood? Yes or no? Have you understood it or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, please keep on responding. Otherwise, I will move in a. I have to rush up. Okay. So please keep on responding whenever I'm asking. Yeah. Now, friends, we are going to learn one more important concept. That is capital structure and valuation. Our objective is to maximize the value of the firm, or you can say objective of the financial management, in fact, is to maximize the value of the firm. And this capital structure has some impact on valuation. So we need to learn that. Capital structure should be planned in such a way that it increases the valuation of the firm. Okay. This can happen in case the value of both the components. Both the components means one component is debt, other component equity. Both the components of the capital structure, that is equity and debt, increases. That means through the combination of capital structure, we should be able to maximize the value of the. Okay, if the cost of debt decreases, cost of debt equity decreases, then value of the firm can be maximized, can increase. Okay, but to understand now the value of this capital structure, we need to understand the concept of present value and future value. I think all of you have understood this, right? All of you know the concept of time value of money and present value and future value concept. Whether you know it or not, please quickly respond. If you don't know, then I have to cover that topic also. Or if you know that, fine, we'll learn. Very quickly you respond whether you have you are thorough in the topic time value of management, time value of money, and present value and future value concepts. Do you know that thing?
Sir, we know but not thorough.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you know, but not fully clear on that.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Your
so
compounding,
we'll
discounting, compounding,
compounding discounting concepts. Huh? Okay, you have some basic idea, right?
ଶୁଣିଛୁ ଖାଲି ଆଉ ଟିକେ ନାକୁ ପଢଉଥିଲେ ଟିକେ ଶୁଣିଛୁ one
Okay, we'll do one thing. Let me then introduce this topic right now. Then maybe next class we'll first learn that topic, time value of money concept and the concept of present value and future value, because that is important. With the help of that only, we'll be able to understand the concept of valuation and also the other parts. Let us say, okay, do you know the IRR part? How to compute IRR?
Yes, sir.
Okay, right. If some of you do not know IRR, our recorded videos are available in your channel on Capital Budgeting. There one place IRR has been discussed. So please go through that, because while we will be computing cost of capital, at that time we will be using that IRR concept. Okay, so time value of money concept, I will be covering it. Maybe in the next class, I will be teaching you that the time value of money, present value and future value. Then we will again come back to this thing, capital structure, right? But IRR, please prepare yourself. Please learn. It is already available. Recorded videos are available in our website, in our channel. So you can go through that. What is IRR? And please come prepared for that. Now we'll continue our discussion on valuation, relationship of valuation with capital structure. Right. First thing we need to know, when you're arriving at the value of equity. So as I told you right now, objective is to maximize the value of the firm. Okay. How we'll be able to maximize the value of the firm? Only when the value of debt is increased, a value of equity is increased, then overall value of the farm will increase. Okay, are you agreeing to this concept? That means I need to maximize the value of debt, maximize the value of equity, then value of the farm will increase. And how to maximize the value of equity? First, let's understand that. First, let us understand the value of equity share is the present value of the dividends expected in future. When you invest money in an equity share, you expect dividends. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And these dividends will be coming in future years. Let us say after 1 year, some dividend will become, after second year, third year, fourth year, fifth year, like this. Over the life, or let us say every year, maybe in future, you are going to receive this dividends. Is it done? And since you are going to receive the dividends in the future, the value will be different. That today's value will be less than that. Let us say after 5 years, you are going to receive 100 rupees. Whether the value of that 500 rupees is today 100 rupees or it is less than that. Less or more?
More.
Yeah?
Less, sir.
It is less, right? So what is 500 rupees after 5 years? Let us say today's value, let us say 40 rupees. Okay. So what is 40 rupees today? Future in 5 years, that will become 100. Or what is 100 rupees after 5 years? The present value of that thing is 40 rupees. Okay. This is the concept, what we call it, the time value of money. That means money grows over time. Right. And here we are understanding the value of equity shares is the present value of future dividends. Since the future dividends are received in future years, so that present value needs to be arrived at to know the value of equity shares. Okay. So this picture, as you see, it shows, let us say present value is 100 rupees and interest is 5%. Then after 1 year, what will be the value?
105.
105. Okay, how 105? Because 100 rupees is growing at the rate of 5%. Okay, how? So this 100 rupees is referred to as present value and 105 is referred to as future value. If I multiply this 100 with a factor, it will give me the future value. The factor is 1.05. So this factor 1.05 for 1 year, this is a factor for 1 year at 5%. This factor 1.505 is referred to as the future value factor or compounding factor. Because when I'm multiplying this thing, it is compounded or it gives you future value. So this is referred to as what? Future value factor or compounding factor. Or if future value is known to me, then I can move from future value to present value. How to move future value to present value? I can do one thing, 105 divided by 1.01, 1.05. When I multiplied with 1.05, I got 105. Then 105 divided by 1.05, I'll be getting 100. So from moving from future value to present value, I have to divide it with the same compounding factor. Or I can multiply it with 1 by compounding factor. This 1 by compounding factor is referred to as discounting factor or present value factor. Because when I'm multiplying it with the future value, I am getting present value. So future value multiplied with discounting factor or future value multiplied with present value factor, I'll be getting present value. Okay, so this 1.05 is what? Which factor?
Compounding factor.
Compounding factor. And 1 by 1.05 is what?
Discounting factor.
Discounting.
Discounting factor. So once I know the compounding factor and discounting factor, then I can move from any point of time to another point of time. That means from present value, I can move to future value. This is for 1 year. But if I tell you, suppose compounding factor at 5% for 23 years. If you multiply, you can get the future value at 23 years. Okay. Let us say I'm taking after 20 years, I'm going to receive 1 lakh. What is the present value? So if I tell you the discounting factor, you can just multiply the discounting factor, you can get the present value. Okay. Right?
Sir, that
Yes,
means,
sir.
sir, whenever time passes ahead, along with value of the money reducing.
Yeah, value of the money reduces.
See, ଏମିତି କାଇଁ ହଉଛି sir? ଇଏ value of the money increase କାଇଁ ହଉନି? ନା ହବନି ସେମିତି? ମାନେ ବରକର ଆମର financial standard ବଢିବ, ତାମାନେ ଆମର value ଟା ବଢିବା କଥା ନା, ଏମିତି କାଇଁ କମି ଯାଉଛି କାହିଁକି? ଆମର ଜନସଂଖ୍ୟା ବଢି ଯାଉଛି ବୋଲି।
Okay. Now here the first, there are various factors for that. We'll be analyzing that thing when I'll be explaining you the concept of time value of money. I think it is important right now to cover that topic. Then we'll come here. Okay, right now I can tell you there are various reasons for which the value of the money decreases. That means what is 100 rupees today? Okay. Or let us say what is 100 rupees? 100 rupees today is not same as 100 rupees tomorrow. After 1 year, let us say today in 100 rupees, you are buying 20 cups of tea. After 1 year, the same 100 rupees, you may be buying only 15 cups of tea. Right? Yes or no?
Yes.
That is why you are saying that value of money is decreasing. Okay. So the primary reason, as you know, is that inflation, prices of goods and services are increasing. Okay. So these reasons, etc., we'll be learning maybe in the next class. I think first we should cover the time value of money concept. Then we'll again come here. But at this stage, you understand. So this is how I can convert present value to future value and the future value to present value. Okay. Up to this, did you understand? Okay. Time value of money, I'll be teaching you separately. Now, let us understand one more thing now. We are talking about the value of equity shares, right? Just now I told you the value of equity shares is the present value of future dividend. Okay. Now, when you are investing money in an equity share, let us say at time period 0, you are investing some money. Okay. Right. So you are paying, let us say you are paying P0. P0 means price at now. Now it is 0 point. Are you getting? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Let us say you are investing 600 rupees today to buy equity shares. So 600 rupees means that is your P0, because that today is the time period 0, it is 600. But now question comes, what is your expectation? So the theory says the expectation is that you will be expecting dividend. But you also know not only you expect dividend, what also you expect price appreciation. That means when you're buying a share at 600, you expect, okay, if I keep it for 1 year, I'll be getting dividend of this much, plus the 600 will become, let us say 650. You think this like this or not? Do you think like this or not?
Yes, sir.
That means when you pay this price, your expectations are two things. Let us say you are keeping it for 1 year. You expect, is it visible now? P0.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So you expect, right? First of all, D1, that means after 1 year, you will be getting dividend. Plus you want P1. P1 means next year's price. So suppose you are paying 600 here. We are thinking, okay, I'll be getting dividend of 20 rupees plus I'll be getting price will be appreciated to 650. So for these two things, you are investing money. So you are paying P0 because you were expecting D1 plus P1. Are you getting? All of you,
Yes,
please
sir.
be attentive and please keep on responding. And let us say, okay, let us say you will be selling these equities after 1 year. You are leaving the market. When you are leaving market, someone else is buying at that price. He is a newcomer. He is buying share from you. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
When he is buying, he is paying P1. Let us say he is paying 650. Why he is paying 650? Because he is expecting next year, that is, he will getting D2. That is second year's dividend. Plus he is expecting P2. He is expecting now this 650 will become 700. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Now,
Yes.
when he is selling shares, another person coming, he is expecting D3 and P3. Okay. And who is selling? The next person coming is expecting D4 and P4. So like this, even if shareholders are changing, their expectations are like this. Okay. Now today, let us say I want to arrive at the value of this, value of P0. Then what is the value of P0? I can say P0 is equal to D1 plus P1 or the present value of D1 or plus P1. Right or wrong?
Right.
Yes, sir.
Right? But what is P1? P1 is D2 plus P2. P1 is D2 plus P2. Is it done?
Yes.
So instead of P1, I can write D2 plus P2. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
But what is P2? P2 is
3 plus
D3,
P2.
P3. What is P3? P3 is D4 plus P4. So now you can see, we can always replace the price with next year's dividend plus next year's price. So that means what is P0? P0 is equal to, in fact, D1. If let us say equities are held for perpetuity till the end, then this P4, the last P will never arise. And what is P0? P0 is equal to D1 plus D2 plus D3 plus D4 plus D5 plus D6 plus D7 up to Dn plus Pn. But since that Pn will never arise, so our logic or our theory says that the value of this P, present value is the present value of future dividends. Price you are going to pay, or this value of equity is the present value of future dividends. Because equity shareholders are ultimately getting the dividends only. Price is always replaced with next year's dividend. Did you understand this concept?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that is the concept here, that P0 is equal to D1 plus P1, P1 is equal to D2 plus P2, and like this. On that basis, we will say that basis we can say this is what I told you, that has been explained in this slide. So after this recorded video will be available, you can pause this slide and you can read it. Investors in with 1 year time horizon buys shares today in anticipation of D1 and P1. Then investors buying, he is expecting D1 plus P1. Investor at T1 buys in anticipation of D2 plus P2. Okay. Similarly, investors at each point of time anticipate the next year's dividend and the next year's price. Thus, the value of the share will depend upon D1 plus D2 plus D3 plus D4 plus like this up to Dn plus Pn. And since equities are for perpetuity, this Pn will never arise. So, for us, we'll assume or we'll conclude that the value of equity is the present value of future dividend. Okay. And there is no intention to sell, the future price will not be taken into consideration. Investment is for a fairly long period of time. So the value of equity is the present value of future dividend. Right? Did you understand? If that is so,
Yes, sir.
what is the value of bond, debenture, etc.? In equity, no doubt, the equity will never mature, the future value will never arise. But in case of bond or any other kind of debt, there it will have, what will happen? The investor will get interest or plus he will get the maturity value or not.
Yes, sir.
Therefore, in case of bond or debenture, etc., the value of the bond or P0 is equal to present value of interest plus the present value of future maturity value. Okay, present value of interest plus future maturity. Let us say you have taken a bond of 1,000 rupees and you will be getting 10% interest for 5 years. So how much you will be getting? 100, 100, 100, 100 and 100, 5 years. Plus last year you will be getting 1,000 also. Yes or no? No. Let us say in case of bond of rupees 100, how much you will be getting? Year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. First year we will getting 100, second year we will getting 100, third year we will getting 100, fourth year we will be getting 100, fifth year we will be getting 100. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
And 5 year in addition to you will be also getting 1,000 rupees because bond matured. It is not equity, it is
Yes.
bond. So therefore, in case of bond, what is the present value? Present value is the future value of is the present value of all this interest plus the future value of face value of the bond or future value of the maturity amount. Present value of all this interest which are receivable in future plus the present value of maturity amount. That is the value of bond. I think you have understood the concept of
Yes.
present value, concept of value of bond and value of equity. Therefore, in case of bond, the formula is value is P0 is equal to interest, first year's interest present value, second year's interest present value, third year's interest present value, fourth year's interest present value, plus future the maturity value is present value. Since the interest is same, in case of bond, you'll be receiving every year same amount. So we can say interest, so when amounts are same, it takes the shape of an annuity. Annuity means fixed payment every year. So interest into present value annuity factor for given number of years and given percentage plus maturity value or face value into present value factor. So we'll arrive at the present value of this amount and present value of this amount. That will be the value of bond. So this is the difference between value of bond and value of equity. Value of equity is the present value of future dividend, and value of bond is the present value of future dividends plus present value of maturity or redemption value. Did you understand?
Yes.
Okay. Right. So this, friends, will stop here. Next class we are supposed to start capital structure theories, but before that I will complete time value of money. Then we'll go to capital structure theories. But after this we have concluded. I think you have understood what is value of equity and value of bond, and capital structure is important because that is decided keeping in mind what will be the value of bond and value of equity. Because through maximizing the value of these two things, the company or entity will be able to maximize the value of business, which is the ultimate aim of financial management. Do you have any query? Any query you have?
No, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Then we'll catch up in our next class. Thank you very, very much.